TaylorMade P790, definitely one of the ironheads of our generation, been one of the most successful models possibly ever. New model now, so how does it differ than last year's model? We'll do a brief talk about what tech changes there are, but ultimately it's performance. Hitting both heads, I'm going to do it at moderate speed again around the 75-80 mile an hour mark, because that's really in main who it's designed for. But what is the performance difference and what you can expect to see from previous model to this based on what the tech changes are? It is a pretty head though. So P790 was already a very, very successful head. And every couple of years it gets a revamp. And this is the latest one. Now, it blends visually really, really well with the 770. You've got that bar across the back on both heads, and that gives it just a nice continuity from a visual point of view in the bag. So there is the potential to do a bit of a split between the two, and I think they've matched those up really well. It doesn't always happen, but when it does, actually it's a visual thing, but I think it works really well in the bag itself. So what actually has changed inside? Now, as I said, this has been a highly successful head. We've still got the speed foam on the inside, that supports, and they've focused on feel. Now, certainly the language they've used is about making it feel the best it's been, and that speed foam on the inside is a major part of that. We've still got the channel cut, the floating face there, which gives a little bit of extra ball speed. Regulates low strike contact as well, keeps ball speed up there. But inside the head, what have they done? So they've used a lighter, stronger material in the face. So it's 20% stronger. So what that allows you to do is go thinner, which makes it lighter, which perimeter weights a little bit more. Thinner means more ball speed. And so what that also does is it increases the sweet spot by 24%. So that material change, that update of the materials to stronger, has a few knock-on effects. And in principle, that means a little bit more ball speed. Obviously, we'll find out when we hit them what that means in terms of actual numbers. There's also more of a development of centre of gravity through the head. So there's a large chunk of tungsten in the toe of the head in the longer irons. It sits very, very low. They've lowered the centre of gravity in the long irons, but they've also managed to then progress it so it goes higher in the shorter irons. So trajectory control through the set, you're getting low CG for forgiveness, higher launch out the long irons, and a higher centre of gravity for a slightly stronger launch and a more moderate spin rate, so more consistency on spin in principle in the shorter irons. So less of just that high launch, low spin bomb all the way through the set. They've drawn on what they've done with the 770 for that. So there are other structures through the head about stiffening the frame, stiffening the chassis, because that directs all the energy back into the ball. And it really fine-tunes elsewhere. Some of the structures, so there's a stability bar across the head. That again also helps to dampen the sound down and soften that tone down as well. So ultimately, these are all the internal workings of the head, but we're also going to mainly look at what the numbers are. So we've got previous model P790, and we're going to hit both of these. They're exactly the same loft, they're exactly the same weight, exactly the same lie. We'll get a comparison on the data and let you know what you're likely to see from the difference between 790 2023, 790 2025. So as I said earlier, going to do this test at roughly 80 miles an hour, so kind of moderate speed rather than high. It sits in that kind of middle ground, but really where a lot of players who are playing this head are going to be, rather than at the 90 mile an hour six iron speed, which would be my natural speed. More relevant to do this at that drop down level. So we're going to start with previous model, 2023 model, get a few shots with this. We'll get 5 or 6 shots to get a good average, then go over to the 790 25, do the same thing. I'll do the odd comment as I'm hitting, but then we'll look at the data and compare the two sets of shots once we've hit both sets. So always been a very sort of classic shape. The matted down look on this was quite distinctive for this head, but fairly neutral blade size and shape. So it always had, and this is where they've measured on feel for the 25 model, that little bit of a clunky sound to it. So a bit of a harder note. So harder sound often helps it feel faster off the face. But I think that's something that in the kind of the players' distance irons into the game improvement irons, the more forgiving ones, actually players want that nicer sound. Now, it's very personal, very subjective, but it's something that the P series, the 790, it's still a players series head. So they're gearing it more at that better players feel. Now, this one has that bit of a pop, bit of a harder sound though. But pretty stable head. It's in terms of performance of the face, it feels quite reliable as a head. It's not a big game improvement head, so we're not comparing it to something like a G440, for example. But certainly, good bit of pop off the face, good bit of ball speed. It's what this has always been such a successful head for. So I'll give this one more. So pretty stable, so a little bit of a harder note to it. Your fairly strong flight, what we'd expect from this head. We'll switch it over, hit the 2025 series and see how different it feels. So moving on to the 2025 model, the chrome, it's interesting how different the chrome, the more polished finish versus the matte finish makes it look down at the ball. You just notice the framing of the head a little bit differently. So we know the size of the head's very similar. It looks a little bit neater in the crutch and the heel side of the head, and a slightly neater top line as well. It's visually a really nice changeover in look for someone who likes that cleaner shape. And immediately that sound, that clickiness is toned right down. So TaylorMade made a big comment about it. That was a big focus, and it has definitely got much more of a sort of quiet, more solid feeling note, because it isn't quite such a high-pitched, hard sound off the face. And it's a much more enjoyable, for want of a better phrase, enjoyable note off the head. You could argue it sounds a bit less fast, but we're going to see from a ball speed point of view how that actually comes off in terms of reality. But for where they're pitching the head at, it's a material change in the sound. And I think overall, there are a couple of models in the past couple of years where the feel at contact has been noticeably more stable, and this definitely feels, I notice a bit less of a mishit. The head feels like it stays with the contact a little bit better. So that extra bit of weighting into the toe and to the bottom side, that tungsten that's moving, is definitely, the lighter face has definitely made it feel just a little bit more forgiving. So overall, softer feel, more forgiving feel isn't a bad combination. So it's always I'm not going to say a worry when you get such a successful head and model that's developed over the years. Do they try and push it too far? Do they change it too much? Actually, in this instance, it's definitely a change for the better overall. Right, let's look at the numbers. So let's look at the summary of the data first. So between the 2023 model, 2025 model, what we are seeing is a gain in ball speed. Now, it is efficiency. So club speed actually is half a mile an hour less for that batch of shots of the 25 model, but we're seeing a 2 mile an hour gain in ball speed. So the thinner, lighter face, bigger sweet spot, lower CG is helping just deliver a better quality contact across the board. Shot to shot, there is a gain there. It's a tangible gain. It's 2 miles an hour, so it's not vast, but there is a gain there. So they have backed up the performance from the tech they've talked about. But interestingly enough, for this batch of shots, again, it's a human, not a robot. Angle attack's half a degree difference, but for me, the 23 model launched a little higher. Now, spin is slightly lower. So spin rate, we're looking at 90 revs difference. It's a little bit more on the 25 model. If we look at the tolerances there, the tolerance on spin's a little bit tighter. So it's not a higher flight. If I'll add the height into this, so you can see between those two, it's 3 foot difference. It's actually marginally lower because for that batch of shots, for me, the launch angle was slightly lower. But I've got tighter tolerance on launch angle and spin out of the 25 model, 0.2 of a degree on launch, 209 on spin versus 0.7 and 280. So there's a little bit more of a spread of performance off the previous model versus the 2025, which results in just under 3 yards gain. It's not earth-shattering, it's never going to be earth-shattering, but it is an improvement. And yes, I might come in for criticism for saying it's an improvement, but it is a slight improvement. The main thing is they're not claiming to have done things and it not achieved anything whatsoever. We are seeing a noticeable, if small, but noticeable and consistent gain in ball speed. And really, with how far the tech has come, I think that's all we can ask of the brands, is they don't just produce a product that just replicates what they've had before. We want to see a gain, and there is a gain in this, albeit small. Now, if I open up the shot data, if I get rid of that bottom one, we can see both sets of data on screen here. So that consistency of, you know, faster ball speed, that smash factor, you know, it dips down to 139 efficiency on the 23, peaks at 144. We're at 143 to 148. So there's ball speed gain every single shot through. There's only one that isn't higher smash on the new model to the previous model. Again, very, very consistent launch, very consistent spin, considering these sort of faster faced models have always been critiqued for variations in spin. I've been someone that's done that. You know, that's certainly dialed down. I think we're seeing that across the board. Again, you know, 3.5 up to 4.3 spin on the 23 model, 3.7 to 4.2. So, you know, 200 or 300 revs, a couple of hundred revs less in terms of top to bottom. So again, a bit of a material gain there. Outside of that, you know, it's really about how suitable a clubhead is for you. You know, because we're looking at a progression on the same model, we're not going to see transformative differences in launch angle and spin and shot type. But, you know, the claims, particularly the feel one, I think this is where it's a small refinement on and a slight improvement on from performance, but a major improvement on the feel. So if you're looking for the performance of the 790, but not that harshness of sound that we've had before, that's a really good option. I think what they've done is they've packaged this up. This is probably where we'd have ideally wanted this product a few models ago, but it's just taken a little bit of time to get all the properties in place to give you that sound and feel that the player's iron kind of warrants. It's still a pretty low spin head within this category. So, you know, something like a Titleist T150, for example, may just hold the spin up just a little bit more. But you know, bang for buck in terms of ball speed, I think this could be incredibly hard to beat this year. So if you're someone who flights it high, is looking for a little bit extra ball speed, if you spin it a decent bit, and you can just bring that flight down and bring that flight down and forwards a touch more, this really could be the head for you this year. Fair play to TaylorMade, that's a great club head. So we'll be doing plenty more of these old versus new comparisons through the year. So if you like this one, we've also got things like this video here where we've done a comparison on some of the big brands, but also into more of the value end of the range. So something where, you know, does more expensive equal that much better? Is it better at all? We've got those videos in the bank as well. So if you like these, like, subscribe, check out those videos, and keep checking the content out through the year.